Welcome back to the Big Saturday Show. As crime spirals out of control in Democrat-run cities, the president of the National Sheriff's Association is slamming President Biden's push to target guns while ignoring criminals. Listen.
So the guns are not the issue. It's the violent acts that can be committed by these people, whether it's using a car, whether it's using their hands to choke somebody. Those are our daughters, our wives, our mothers, our children. And the Biden administration needs to start listening to our communities, needs to start listening to law enforcement. There's people that know how to make this work and know how to protect our. And they've got a hidden agenda that they're sending out there and they're following. That's not the agenda for the American people, not keeping the American people safe.
In New York City, radical district attorney Alvin Bragg is doing an about-face and changing a part of his soft-on-crime policies amid intense backlash. On his third day in office, Bragg ordered prosecutors not to seek prison sentences for a slew of crimes and to downgrade charges, including for robberies and commercial burglaries. In a new memo, Bragg now calling for commercial armed robberies to be charged as felonies. So, Tammy, I'm going to come to you first because the president of the Detectives Endowment Association made a point that I think is pretty obvious to all of us. The fact that it had to be put into a memo that armed robbery is now a felony is pretty scary.
It is. And remember, it's only commercial armed robberies. So that sets out a whole different dynamic when it comes to you on the street, some other environment that it's done. There's still this very strange dynamic where you have to ask, why? Because if this is about equity and improving the quality of lives of people of color, these are, in this city, in commercial areas, in neighborhoods, people of color. So you're allowing victims, more victims in your community to be created, whose lives then are changed or ruined. You don't get over having a gun held at your throat or a knife, held at your throat. When you're robbed, whether you're in a store, if you're a clerk, or if you're walking freely along the street, it's a very strange message that creates more fear. It makes everyone unsure about what's possible except the bad guys. This is like a green light to commit more crimes as though they're entitled to it, or this is some kind of retribution or revenge for something. And of course, the governor can fire this individual. She won't do it. But I think after Biden's visit, this was one of the compromises, but I don't think it's going to make a big difference in this city, which is, it's a great American city, but it's a raging dumpster fire right now, and very dangerous.
Very dangerous. And Sean, you hear the sheriff say that the lawmakers really need to listen to law enforcement. However, over the course of the past 2 years, we've just seen so many progressives and their base make law enforcement the bad guy. But those are actually the members of law enforcement are the ones, they're the ones on the streets. They know what needs to be done because they know what works.
Well, they know what needs to be done, just like any good prosecutor knows what should be done. When people walk into a store or someone's home and pull a gun or a knife, these are bad people. They don't deserve a second chance. Those are people who you throw the book at, you charge them to the full extent of the law, and you put them in prison for a long time because they are dangerous people. That Bragg had to walk his comments back just shows how radical he is. There's a lot of good men and women who are in prosecutor's office that are trying to do the right thing. There's a small few who have got themselves into the leadership positions. Again, it's like the fox getting into the hen house and actually destroying policies that prosecutors have used for a long time to get bad people off the streets. One other thing, Joe Biden and liberals are talking about guns and let's go after guns. The problem is it's actually people who use guns. And so this is, I think, just a diversion tactic to say if we can use crime that we've helped foment in the country and use it to go after guns, which is really our political motivation, is we don't like guns in America. We don't want people to have guns. We hate the Second Amendment. So we can use crime to go after your guns and try to sell people on the fact that we're doing something good for the communities to keep them safe. It's all a little ruse. And I think most Americans understand this and are going to push back on it. You can't fix the problem unless you recognize the problem. And liberals have not recognized the problem yet, that they're not supporting police, and they have liberal prosecutors. And guns aren't the problem. People are the problem.
Joe, I've got to get you in here because we've seen an increase in crime. We haven't seen an increase in the number of guns in the country, and they're going after the guns, not the crime.
It was a great argument by Sean, by the way. Look, removing a gun from the situation, would that have helped what happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where a maniac out on relatively little bail ran over and murdered grandmothers and children alike. Would removing a gun from the situation, would that have saved Breonna Kepfer? She was a UCLA student that was brutally stabbed to death while working at a furniture store in an upscale neighborhood in Los Angeles. Here are the stats in New York right now, all right? And you tell me how much of this has to do with guns. Major crimes in New York are up 38%. Rape is up 27%. Robbery is up 33%. Grand larceny is up 57%. Grand larceny auto up about 93%. And this is what happens when you have a mayor, and thank God he's gone, Bill de Blasio, when he cut police funds by the tune of $1 billion, demoralizing his department in the process. And we're not just seeing an increase in crime now, Alicia, but criminals, they become more fearless, utterly brazen, because they know even if police forces are beefed up, right, and now we're seeing a refund the police movement right now in many cities across the country, they know that there's a DA on the other side that's just going to make it a revolving door back out into the street anyway. So until we see a two-prong approach, you're right. Tammy's right. Not much is going to change.
Lisa, can I throw one other point in here just quickly? Before I know you got to go, but Joe made a good point on the Waukesha Christmas parade. Remember that the media called that a car crash. They didn't call it the failed policies of low bail or diversion programs. They called it a car crash instead of calling out the policies that allowed that individual, Darrell Brooks Jr., out on bail to go kill, Wisconsinites at a Christmas parade. It's horrendous, and the media is complicit in what's happening in the country.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.